Nikhil Mehta. With me is Thayjus Pancholi. We're excited to break down what was just a thrilling, unbelievable Ravens win. Um, the kind of game that you really don't want to see as a fan. But once it's over and you actually won, you kind of enjoy it more at the end. I would say I enjoyed that game more after it ended than I necessarily did during the game. Um, Ravens, outlasted the Bengals in overtime on a Justin Tucker field goal. It was very good to see him get back into the rhythm of things. But I think the big question coming out of this game is about the Ravens defense, giving up 38 points, letting Joe Burrow basically have his way up and down the field. Did have the key interception in the fourth quarter, stood really strong against the run in overtime, but really just a lot of blown coverages. And I think it's a combination of scheme and individual player issues. So, but I guess the bigger question is, 5 weeks in now, we've seen the Ravens have some really good defensive games. We've seen them get completely walked all over. How worried are you about the Ravens defense at this point?
On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being that I will reactionarily fire my head coach after a London game for absolutely no reason other than to appease my quarterback. 1 being Mike McDonald never left and is back in the 2000 Ravens. I'll give it like a 4 or 5. It's not higher than a 6. Not yet, at least. And the main reason is because I think there's some people that are like much lower on that scale and they're attributing it to, oh, Mike McDonald like showed up and like they had the Dolphins game. They had issues, especially like similar issues, like blown coverages, like things late in games just were weird and happening. And I don't think like I can't attribute it all to that because it's not like it's not like this is like going from Wink Martindale to Mike McDonald again. We're not doing that. We're going from Mike McDonald to essentially like Mike McDonald's sequel, essentially. It's not necessarily a different book. So I don't think necessarily like they're analogous situations, and that also puts pressure on Zach Orr to be Mike McDonald, which is very unfair to him. Um, but I do think it's fixable things, and I also think that part of the issue is they've just run into dudes. They've run into just a ton of dudes. Like you can like look at the schedule. You have the Chiefs, and there's not a lot of talent on that team other than 15, but they have 15. So already,
Yeah, and that
sure.
was that was a healthier Chiefs team than what we're seeing now. That's struggling a little bit more on offense. Pacheco, Rice were healthy then. Um, you think about it, I think that is a really good point with Mahomes. Yeah, okay, we don't need to rehash the Raiders game. Complete,
But
just
they got
blown
guys.
on.
But the Raiders have guys. Brock Bowers,
Yeah,
consensus like best tight end prospect, probably I think better than Kyle Pitts, but again, at the very least, since
I
Kyle
agree with
Pitts.
you.
Devontae Adams, we do not need to discuss this. Jacoby Myers, probably an upper end number 2 receiver in the league. Week 3, we get to Buffalo. They've got 17. So again, whole new set of problems.
And it was
Kincaid is a good
Clem's.
player. Yeah, Kincaid, good player. Keon Coleman, I want to love Keon. I don't like him as a boundary receiver, but that's not the point. Um, Week
And
4,
then
we have CD. Week 5, we get Jamar and T. Like, there's not been a break. Now, the problem is that you can't exactly expect to be going against the Nelson Aguilars of the world come January and knock on wood beyond. Like, you are going to have to be able to beat dudes at some point. But that doesn't mean that like in the beginning of the year in a trial by fire, like I'm not going to necessarily crucify them or make a sweeping declaration on like what they are yet. That's a backed up Bengals team against the wall with all 3 alphas back and ready to go. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's an argument you can make too. I think there are people that would put, and I wouldn't say this personally, but Mahomes, Prescott, Burrow, Allen, and Lamar are probably some people's top 5 quarterbacks in the league. So you're facing probably other top 10, 4 of the top 10 in the league in the first 5 weeks. And you did put really good performances together um, against the Bills. I thought they played the Chiefs pretty well, considering it was week 1 for Orr. So yeah, I think I agree. I'm not super worried about the Ravens defense. I think one of the big things is the run defense has just been so stifling. just unbelievably good. They are allowing about -1 yard over expected. So from on any given run, another team is running, the Ravens are running 1 yard less than you would expect. And that is a really strong stat because it's just their run defense is so consistent. Like they allowed 2 10-yard runs, explosive runs to the Bengals. That tripled their total on the season. They only allowed one run over 10 yards in the first 4 weeks. So being able to rely on the run defense like that and kind of force offenses to be one dimensional. Yes, that is where your weakness is right now. But I also think if you look at their estimated points added per pass, they're ranked 7th. So yeah, they're giving up a ton of yards, but they have the 7th worst EPA per pass. There's room for that to improve. I think the issues kind of are based in two things. One, I think they've moved around their secondary. They've slid Marlon into the slot, but they've also bumped him outside at times, depending on what package they're using. And for example, it was him, I think, on a cover 3 on that deep chase touchdown where he just did not get deep enough into his drop. And so part of that is like switching a player inside, outside. I think once you get a little later in the season, Mollett is back full time, and you really know what you're working with on a consistent basis in terms of the secondary. I think that helps. I think one other issue I feel like is the amount of times that they have the middle linebackers mugging in the A gap and then having to drop over the middle of the field because just physically he's running back, and it is just so easy to manipulate someone who just has to run back like that to either stop short or blow right past them underneath. That not just sets up completions, but it sets up yards after the catch. It leaves Roquan out of position to make the tackle after the catch. It doesn't just allow a completion. And the third thing is, honestly, Eddie Jackson has just been a disappointing player as a deep safety. You just expect more out of a veteran like that. The Ravens were in touch with Justin Simmons. He wanted too much money. Atlanta was willing to give it to him. The Ravens went with the cheaper option, Eddie Jackson, which I don't necessarily blame them for, given Jackson's history and the cap situation. But Jackson has not come on and been kind of that Geno Stone, that veteran Geno Stone replacement that people are expecting. Now, Stone hasn't played that great in Cincinnati, which tells you a lot about, again, McDonald's scheme and how he was able to use his players. But as you noted, it took him a little while to figure out exactly how to deploy everyone in the right positions. Marcus Williams is also, I think he's been over criticized, but I don't want that to mean that we don't talk about the fact that he has not played up to snuff either. And so I think it's a combination of or kind of leaning a little bit less on Roquan to cover such massive areas of the middle of the field. And I think it's also just finding a little bit more consistency in the secondary. Hamilton is consistently playing down the box. It's not a situation where you want to move him away from the line of scrimmage, but I think just practicing, having him as a deep safety a little bit more in practice so that you can go to it later at games if you really feel like you want to have Ardarius in the slot, or if you want to have Ardarius in the slot and Simpson playing linebacker, but you still want to get Hamilton involved, keep him as a deep safety because he's still very good at that. And he's, I think, obviously less of a liability than Eddie Jackson's been. So I think part of it is just getting some consistency in secondary. I don't want to take Hamilton out of that position, but I do think that's an adjustment that Orr can consider later in games when you're not as worried about getting up on the line of scrimmage to stop the run. When you have them in a situation where they're passing, you can use them a little bit more as a designated cover guy and a little bit deeper.
And I think part of getting Trenton Simpson on the field there is that he's not going to be a one-to-one direct replacement for Kyle Hamilton in the box. But if there was a player on this team that could do some of those things, and particularly in the screen game, the ability to be explosive and come downhill, for Trenton Simpson, that's pretty much the dream right there. Pin the ears back, sir, and just go nuke a screen. That's what Kyle Hamilton is so dangerous at around the line of scrimmage. He's a one-man screen ender. And I don't think Trenton Simpson can do it to the degree, partially just because of the size and explosiveness that Kyle Hamilton has. But Trenton Simpson can probably do like 80% of that. And you get Kyle Hamilton on the back end, who's going to obviously provide a much more significant boost over, like you said, Eddie Jackson. And Marcus Williams is a weird one. I'm not worried about it until I have reasons to be worried about it. You were injured last year. It's just been unlucky. I'm willing to give and played relatively like fine last year given the circumstances. I won't say that he was like a world beater necessarily, but dude had a torn pec and it could have looked a lot worse than it did. So I'm gonna give him some degree of benefit of the doubt there. Um, but I also think part of it is figuring out what you want to do with Nate Wiggins. Is something, and I very much like Nate Wiggins. I think he's going to be a really, really good player in this league. And I think that's why they're going to let Brandon Stevens walk when someone inevitably gives him a ton of money, is they have Nate Wiggins. But right now, I mean, it's like what Nate Wiggins is at like 35% snaps. And I'm not saying that it's bad or anything like that, but what I am saying is, like you said, with moving Marlon Humphrey around, there's a lot of just like a lot of role switching for some guys just to move people in and out of the lineup sometimes, and it's kind of hard to get a footing in that way sometimes, is what I would say.
Yeah. I think Wiggins played, I think, something like 81% of the snaps against Buffalo, and then only played 31% this week. I think because he was struggling in the first half against Higgins and Chase, because they're just at this point, those guys are veterans and they're good at manipulating young defenders at the catch point. And Wiggins relies so much on his physical gifts, not that he shouldn't, but it also lets the Bengals receivers know how they can manipulate him into over pursuing or trusting that he can make up distance that he can't actually in the NFL that he might have
Buck's
been able
just
to in
flat out
college.
bigger and stronger than him right now. He's been on an
Exactly.
NFL roster for 6 months. Like the concern with Nate Wiggins coming out was the weight. I don't think it's going to be an issue long term over his career. But the idea that Nate Wiggins has an NFL like body ready to go against T. Higgins or Jamar Chase right now, because Jamar Chase is basically made of adamantium, it's not going to be there right now, and that's fine. It's not going to be there. It's probably going to be there next year, but right now it's just a big ask.
Yeah, and I think he has shown plenty of flashes
Oh, and he
of the
plays
player
bigger than
he's
he
going
is,
to
so I
be.
don't really care about that.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's just the trouble again, like I was saying, I think they went in the season more expecting Arthur Mollett to be their guy in the slot like he was last year. With the injury, I think he had maybe a minor setback this week. They're still having to juggle around there. So again, I think that's something that settles down when he's in there. Yeah, I'm not too concerned. I think the pass rush up front has been good. It hasn't been great. But I think Orr's really starting to get comfortable with calling um, the right stunts and twists. I still think that he he isn't getting home on blitzes enough. He's not generating free rushers. But when he's rushing forward with some interior line twists and stuff, he's moving Matabike. I think the great one I saw this week was moving Matabike out to the edge, Ojabo on the inside, and then having Ojabo sweep outside and clear the path for Matabike up the middle. I think as he kind of gets more comfortable and potentially, and this is something I talked about on Ken McCusick's podcast a little while ago, I think potentially also giving the Ravens defensive linemen a little more freedom to call their own stunts, which is something that McDonald did. We'll see more pressure up front with four because I think that's something that he's been able to get into this defensive scheme that I don't think was super present last year. And McDonald also used a lot of stunts and twists when he was rushing with four to get to get home. So again, I think it's all a matter of settling in, getting used to things with play caller. I think, um, and it's not like the Ravens don't see this as an issue. They probably see this as their number one issue right now. And honestly, that's not what I would have expected coming into the season. But that's also not a bad place to be when you know that you have talent that you can rely on in the secondary. So moving on to the Bengals game and Lamar Jackson, this was one of those games that just defies football logic to me and how you evaluate a player because you have Jackson making so many incredible plays. He is like extending plays behind the line of scrimmage. He's finding receivers downfield. I mean, he had a 5.5% sack rate when pressured, not just in the game, but he only took one sack on 18 pressures. Some insane football play by him, but he's also dropping two snaps in crucial moments. Now, one of them he saved for one of the biggest plays of his career. The other one, quite frankly, should have cost the Ravens that game. And so it's one of those days where you're happy that Lamar Jackson's your quarterback, not just because of what it can do, but also because you could tell exactly how mad he was after that game at himself for that performance because he felt like whether it was the drop snap in the overtime or even his touchdown to Likely, neither of those things was supposed to happen that way. He did not. He started both those plays with a mistake, and I think that accountability and leadership is something that not. I don't think it's something he's not been good at in the past, but I think it's something that's a lot more present this year in his leadership of the locker room. Um, and I think for that reason, you're still like it's kind of impossible to knock him for Sunday's game.
It,
Because look, the way I see it is
he's
this.
so good. When I was a kid, my third grade teacher described me. This is a true story. And Mrs. Van Grack, shout out to you. I don't know where or if you're on this earth still, but shout outs to you. Had a parent teacher conference and described me as she said, you know how Einstein would like come up, do all these incredible things with physics, but then forget to put his socks on in the morning? That's your son, ma'am. And not to compare myself to Einstein or Lamar Jackson, but that's what this is. It'll be the most incredible. Someone tweeted out like, that's the most Lamar Jackson way to come back and win the game, and then immediately 2 seconds later, that's the most Lamar Jackson way to lose a game, and it's just like it's just weird stuff. There's always a weird Lamar Jackson play. And if it comes with the territory of the good Lamar Jackson plays that make my jaw drop, then I'm taking it a bazillion times out of a bazillion. Every
Yeah,
single but they're just weird things. And like I don't know that like there's a fix to them because like I don't know how you tell someone to snap the ball better or catch the snap of the ball better. But like I think part of it is just like if nothing else, just like have someone, and again, this is like me projecting a whole lot of information that I do not know right now. But when I say that, like, sometimes this team gets over its skis, sometimes, like, that's like, though, like, when you get over your skis, these types of things happen. Now, whether this happened yet on Sunday because they were out over their skis or just because it happened, I don't know. But I would say that, like, probably I do want to see just more like of a median level of how we approach things. Like when that game went to overtime and in the fourth quarter, I just kept saying, keep it simple. Like we don't need to do much. Just like step one, catch the ball. Step two, read the defense. Step three, adjust. Like just keep it super simple. And I think that's where I just want to see it a little bit more. And they did keep it simple for the most part.
yeah, it
But
was really the fumbled snap. And kind of the way I see it is this: if McPherson nails a 53-yard field goal, which he was getting touted as like a really great kicker, like going into last season, and I went and looked up his stats, and I was like, he's not that statistically great at kicking. He's not like a top five kicker
it's
in the
because he
league.
hit the rookie as a rookie. He hit that one in Arrowhead.
Yeah, but like still, that's it. And so he misses a kick that still he's made plenty of times in his career. If he makes that kick, then everyone Monday morning is talking about Lamar's fumble and Joe Burrow's performance to win that game. And he misses the kick. Ravens get lucky. They get lucky with Taylor's play calling and the miss. And instead, we all get to talk about Lamar's performance. So I just want to make sure we keep that. And I'm glad you phrased it the way you did in terms of finding like that being willing to take the good with the bad of Lamar, but also looking at the bad and saying these are easily fixable things, which makes you actually feel even better about what he can do, which is if he can just clean up simple things like looking at the football as it snapped towards his face, then there are very few blemishes that Lamar Jackson puts together because I feel like the accuracy has been a lot more there this year. His touch on deep balls has been there. His just efficiency and one of the things that we've been screaming about I feel like for years is just taking what the defense gives you. He has figured out how to do that this year and it has basically become almost unstoppable when he's in rhythm on this offense because they are rotating guys in and out, they're fresh and they're attacking downhill. So really great game from him and you want him to clean those things up. Want to run through a couple quick awards here. They just give me your offensive and defensive players of the game.
Fence is dumb. I'm not going to address that one. I'm
No,
not.
okay.
You know what?
I should clarify. Other than Lamar, this is
You know
always
what?
other than Lamar.
You know what? I'll probably go with Chuck Kohler. Give me Chuck Kohler for offensive player of the game. Did he have the best
Highest grade
performance?
receiving tight end in by PFF right now.
No, he did not have. He was not like the most essential part of that game. But seeing Chuck Kohler, like they ran the Kohler Express, the seam ball. He just looked good in general. I think it just like I don't think he's better than Mark Andrews. And I think anyone freaking out about Mark Andrews should have drafted a better fantasy team.
He had a good. Oh, Andrews had a good game too.
And again, like Andrews looked good, especially like in the run game as well. I thought Mark Andrews looked really good. But
Yeah,
Charlie Cole, I think, was it's just nice to see that like it can be a thing. Like when like I have trust in Charlie Kohler now moving forward if he needs to play a significant chunk of snaps for whatever reason. I feel confident that there's not going to be a significant drop off there. So I think that's a big deal. Defensively, uh, Matabike, I guess, because he got that fourth quarter sack. No, it's Humphrey. Like, does the interception rule out that cover three rotation that he was late to or frankly missed? Like, I don't know. So I'll probably go with Matabike on that one.
yeah. Matabike had a really strong game. I felt like pressures, run stops. I think that this was one of those defensive games where the linemen didn't necessarily maul in the backfield so much as they were just really gap disciplined and open things up for the linebacker. Matabike played a lot more snaps this week than he did last week too. I think for my offensive player of the game, I got to go to Tyler Linderbaum because so Ronnie Stanley played great, and I think there's some discrepancy between next gen stats and PFF for how many pressures he surrendered. In general, I felt like when he was one on one in straight up passing matchups with pass blocking matchups with Hendrickson, I thought he did very well. And I thought the Bengals did a good job with their blitz packages to work free rushers. And the Ravens were doing it good. We're doing the right thing by squeezing inside, but that would leave someone open off the edge, and Stanley might get credited with that pressure. Regardless, Linderbaum is just brilliant. I mean, he is really reaching that elite level center play where it's like him and Creed Humphrey and absolutely no one else in the league right now. And his ability to just get out front in runs, but especially in this game in pass protection, where he can just hold his own in battle against pretty much any interior lineman in the league without help, is a major reason why they were able to continue to pick up blitzes in the second half and just completely destroy the Bengals' plan to blitz the hell out of Lamar Jackson. Very, very aware at the line. Obviously, those snaps are partially on him. Those snap issues are partially on him because Lamar is trying to get the snap, trying to get the ball out with the game clock ticking down. So that's partially on him. But I think when you just look at his block performance and what he has done since coming into this league, and people debating if the Ravens should have spent a first round pick on a center, which I think was still a fair debate. I think Linderbaum is hitting that high outcome, that high range of the outcome that you hope for when you spend a first round pick on the center. He's going to get so much money in about a year. Defensive player of the game, I'm a little torn here. I actually think Roquan had one of his best games of the year. I felt like the Ravens did not get burned over the middle as much as they just got burned down the sidelines, and it was mostly their cornerbacks that were struggling. I think Hamilton also had a great game, but I think I'm going to give this to Roquan, especially because of his ability to just completely shut down the run. Him, especially again, going back to that overtime sequence, I cannot believe Zach Taylor called 3 straight runs with the way that his offense was playing. That is malpractice, and he is. I know we talk about Harbaugh's game management. Taylor is worse at game management. He has proven he has no idea how to manage a game, and that was a
Offensively,
huge,
yes.
huge example. And Roquan Smith knew after the first 2 runs that all right, we stuff him here, we're going to have a chance, and he came in and made the play. So great job by him. Play of the game, we got a lot of nominees for this one. I think the obvious play of the game is maybe the play of Lamar Jackson's career, which was the drop snap with Sam Hubbard chasing after you. Sam Hubbard, he was having a heck of a game of his own right, stiff arming him into the ground and then finding Isaiah Likely in the end zone, which calling for the ball between 2 defenders in the end zone is like such a wide receiver move by Isaiah Likely. Like I incredible stuff.
I think from I want to I don't want to be I feel like it's boring to say that one. I'll say it's the Humphrey interception, honestly. I think frankly, they lose the game without it. They are already lost the game without it. But it's reflective of Juan Humphrey, who people seem to just hate because he is the face of happiness and the like when Marlon Humphrey is happy after the Ravens every day the Ravens don't win the Super Bowl, he should be punished according to people until he wins the Super Bowl. So like
Hey,
people
Lamar might
are
say
like
that.
weird about it. People are very weird about Marlon Humphrey and he's having a like his best year since like 2019 probably. Um and I think that deserves a shout out. And also, he was manned up on Jamar Chase, which exercises the demons of the 2020, 2021, where like
21.
Jamar Chase ran all over them. Granted, Jamar Chase still ran all over them today. I will
Yeah.
not say that's not true. But that was like, again, when it was time to nut up or shut up, Zach Orr said, "We're playing man, boys. Everyone go get your guy and press the hell out of him." And Marlon Humphrey won that fight against a very, very strong, physically dominant, frankly, receiver.
Yeah, I mean, I think you were texting me during the game about the Bengals just abusing them with slants.
Oh, it's so
And
frustrating.
the big, there are kind of two ways you can try to stop that, either with underneath zones that they were using tight ends to clear out that wasn't working. And so instead you have to go back to man and just trust your guys to make a play. And Marlon read the release, knew the route that was coming, and just I don't even know why Burrow threw that ball, quite frankly. That was
He was
also a
locked in.
terrible decision by
He was
Burrow.
locked in from the start.
Yeah, and a
He was
terrible
he was being
decision.
permanent.
So I also wanted to get your unsung hero from the game, someone that you felt like contributed a lot, but maybe didn't play as many snaps. Kolar maybe would have qualified for that, but I'm sure there are
Zach
plenty of other
Taylor.
thoughts.
Zach Taylor. My guy, Zach Taylor.
I'm
My guy,
gonna
Zach Taylor
I'm gonna give
is
mine to
my
Tylan
unsung hero.
Wallace. Converted two first downs on both of his catches through the air. He had that fumble or he had that punt that he allowed to drop all the way to the two. That to me was just a matter of he read the spin of the ball right, but just didn't read the coverage downfield. Those are the two parts of fielding a punt. It's very surprising to see that from him, excuse me, because of how solid he's been on special teams. It's the kind of gaff I really don't expect from him again. And he also had a key block to spring Derrick Henry loose in overtime. Actually adjusted on the fly because him and Ricard kind of busted the play and then fixed it themselves, which I thought was really impressive. So Wallace, I think, a sneaky candidate for a Justice Hill-esque extension.
My for I don't know if I'm there yet. I'm happy you're there.
For a
I don't know if
first
I'm there.
Justice Hill extension. Sorry, not the one he got this
Maybe,
year. The first one he got.
maybe, maybe. I'm not gonna be mean, but I'm not just not gonna say I'm there yet. In reality, my unsung hero of the game, weirdly enough, is Justin Tucker. That dude, it was what, 4th and 6, and I was screaming to go for it. Full disclosure, I was screaming to go for it because I had like my brain has been conditioned out of we crossed midfield, send him out there. And when they sent him out there, I felt terrible about it. And then he kicked that ball with the left to right draw down the middle in the end from 56. And I was just like, I don't know if he's back, but that's something that if he was back, he would be doing right now. Hit the game winner. Nothing went wrong there. It was from 24 from like the left hash, so whatever. But it could have gone wrong, and it didn't. So I'll go with my guy, Justin Tucker there. Am
Yeah,
I
that
like all the way
Tucker.
back? No. But I want to be, and this is a good first step in me wanting to be all the way back.
Yeah, I mean it was a windy day. I think Tucker battling that wind was it like a good rep for him, good confidence builder, and that was also the moment where I was like, I remember that when McPherson was stepping up to kick. I was like, this gonna be a problem. So quickly, I want to talk about the coaching. I know you and I talked a lot about Harbaugh's decision not to challenge. I forget even whose catch it was in the first quarter. I think
It's like Gasecki, I think.
yeah, where I fall on that is they rule it a catch. I didn't think there was conclusive evidence to overturn it. I don't think it was a catch, but I don't think they would have overturned it. And I would rather Harbaugh be conservative with his challenges and save the timeouts than not. It's just annoying that he throws the challenge flag on less obvious plays to challenge, but doesn't on this one. But if this is him deciding to be more conservative with challenges, I'm here for it. But I don't feel like there's a coherent strategy with his challenges.
If you're telling me this is like the new John Harbaugh, then that's fine. There's two problems with this. Number one, there's never been a new John Harbaugh. Number two, um, like it's context matters. It's the first half. Timeouts aren't as valuable, like even except when you give the other team a timeout. Um, but like I just don't. I like what is the process that determined we should challenge the Devonte Adams catch, and why did this process again then not say to challenge the Mike Gesicki catch?
Exactly what I'm saying. And I don't, and that's what I'm saying is and Harbaugh has somewhat admitted to this. And I think this is why he should just be conservative by default, which is there isn't that much of a process because it's very hard to get the right angle right away, get it down to the coach, and get the right angle that's conclusive and get it down to the coach because the other team more often than not is hurrying up to get the next playoff so you can't challenge. And sometimes they're doing that to try to get you to challenge and he's fallen for that trap. So again, if this is, I think I'm curious now to see how these go in the future, especially given the situation when it was a time where you could throw the challenge flag. It wasn't in the second half where you need to conserve timeouts. But I think the other thing, so we'll see how that progresses. The other thing that you alluded to was that timeout situation at the end of the first half, which, I think Harbaugh just said he was too aggressive he was just too aggressive calling timeout before that 3rd and 10 because he wanted to get the first down and keep going down the field. With the Bengals opening the ball in the second half, and he was just too aggressive, which is great. I just don't know who can tell Harbaugh he's being too aggressive because I love that he went for the 4th and 1 in his own territory. I'm fine with that decision given the game situation and your ability to get short yardage. But then almost being like pot committed on a 3rd and 10 because you went for it on 4th and down is just not a sound process. And so again, I
Trust your
think that
guys, John. Just trust your defense, man. They don't give they haven't given you a ton of reason right now to trust them, but
well,
just
and
trust your defense here. And this is what I
that's
would have
also
said
the
in
point.
the AFC Championship game. The AFC Championship game of the whole pass because we have to pass a ton because the Chiefs are going to pass a ton and run it up on us. We have to keep up. Trust that your defense can stop someone, dude. Like you got a lot of expensive investments there from picks wise and from money wise. Like they can do some things here for you. Just trust them to make a play for you sometimes. You don't need to win the game by just road runnering against whenever you see a good offense.
Yeah. Yeah. We talked plenty about Zach Orr's coaching. But I did want to say about Harbaugh. Um, Going, and this goes into Monken too, going back, I think in overtime, the play call was really solid, especially going to Henry on that last drive with how
I think
fresh
so
he
too.
was. Simple completion of Bateman in overtime as well, I believe. And so I just think that the offensive coach and the offensive play call was just really good. Monken really seems to have figured out what he wants to do with this offense on the ground and through the air. And look, you don't want to be in a shootout against Joe Burrow, but the fact that you can win a shootout against Joe Burrow with your drop back offense and one of maybe your second or third best player not on the field for most of the second half on offense, it's a really good sign for this offense moving forward. I think Monken has kind of worked out the kinks that we saw in the first 2 weeks, especially in the second half, maybe first 3 weeks in the second half. But the last 2 weeks have been pedal in the metal, stepping on their throats, score until we drop. And I think that is exactly what this offense can be because they're not so dependent on any one playmaker that they can rotate these guys in and out all game and stay fresh, Henry included. And then they're really really dangerous in the second half, which is I don't think something we've been able to say about these Ravens teams too much in the past couple of years.
Next up, yeah, I
Um,
completely agree.
Last thing, looking ahead to the Commanders, just gosh, 2 MVP candidates. I think everyone's comparing Daniels and Lamar, which is funny to me because they're very
They're not
different
the same at
players.
all. They're not the same at
Yeah,
all.
exactly. But they are, in my opinion, I think two of the leading MVP candidates right now. Lamar certainly, Daniels, I think deserves to be in the conversation after what he's done through 5 weeks. Um, I it's going to be a heck of a challenge for the Ravens to try and contain this offense. Explosive offense. It beats you with the run, beats you with the pass. I do think they have the advantage on defense. I completely screwed that up. I'm worried about the Commanders' offense. I'm not worried about the Commanders' defense. I just think the Ravens have figured out what they can do on offense, and I think that their versatility. I don't think there's a defense that can really completely stop them. Some can slow them down. The Bengals slowed down the run the first half, but when it morphed into the Lamar Jackson show, they didn't have any answers.
I'm curious to see how badly Cliff wants to win this game. Cliff, if you want to win this game, the whole little like rinkety doo, we're lining up Terry and having him run out routes every single play, or out routes or go balls, it ain't gonna work. The Bengals just showed you how to beat this team, and it's you got to hammer them in the middle on crossers. You gotta exploit the deep zones when you have the chance to, but you got to hit the middle of the field and make all the pressure looks and all the dropping. Like you have to punish the drops quickly.
Mhm.
And I don't know if Cliff's going to do that because Cliff has never liked throwing to the middle of the field ever. Zach Ertz did some things in Arizona, I guess. Like, but even then, Zach Ertz looked like he was like on the hash sometimes, like
Yeah,
kind of order there.
I will say Daniels has thrown better in for pros than he has in the middle of the field, which is
Oh, he's looked
than
better
he
in
did
the
in
middle of the
college,
field.
which is a
But I'm
huge
curious,
change.
which is
But
why I'm not curious about Jaden Daniels' ability. I'm curious if Cliff's gonna try it.
yeah, I think the big coaching match from that game is Cliff and Orr. I think Monken's going to have the answers on offense. They
Yeah.
just any last thoughts on Ravens-Bengals other than the fact that the Bengals are 1-4 now?
Sorry, I can't cuss. I don't like them.
We'll edit that part out. All right, Thayjus, thanks so much for joining me.